less.
Or less, yeah. Good morning, everybody. This is a very special moment, like it was back on November 11th, where we had our first event for Massive. And we are kicking off a new podcast, vidcast, kind of a show called Massive Change. And this is the first episode. And welcome.
Well, welcome. For those who doesn't know me, I'm Virginia Lacayo. I'm a mindset coach, but also I have a doctorate degree on communication for social change and complexity science, and I'm a long life activist.
Right. And for those that don't know, I'm Justin Foster. I've been a brand strategist for about 20 years, and we got no sound. All right. Thank you, Bev. Hold on. I think we might have to get rid of this microphone. Sound check. Bev, thank you for the comment. Can you hear us?
Can you hear us now? Yes, she said yes.
Okay, thank you, T. Okay, hey, good. This is live television. So,
Right.
yeah, thank you, T. You may have to unmute yourself on our end, on your end, but here we are. So just to kind of reset, this is where we're going to edit the recording right here. So welcome to the very first episode of Massive Change. I'm Justin Foster.
I'm Virginia Lacayo.
And we are the co-founders of Massive, which is a new kind of coaching practice and strategic advisory firm that's designed specifically for conscious business leaders that want to use their status and their power to change the system in some way.
In actually a massive way.
In a massive way, exactly.
Yes.
So we have very diverse backgrounds. I think go ahead and share a little bit about your background, and I'll share mine, and kind of gives context to why we are having this topic today.
Well, I'm a long life activist, and I've been in the social change field for many years, both as a practitioner, also as a consultant, advisor, and academic. I have a PhD on communication for social change and complexity science, and I'm certified mindset coach. So I'm combining all that for this show and for everything that we're doing together.
Yeah. And I am a lifelong brand strategist. Well, not lifelong, but 20 years anyway. And feels like a life, certainly as an adult. And back in 2014, I had what would best be described as a spiritual awakening. And this journey of that awakening is really aligning my inner world and my outer world, and learning that I want to use my skills around messaging and strategy to affect systemic change. So that's what we're doing with Massive, we're doing that for people that are trying to create systemic change.
And we decided to start this show because we think that there is not enough spaces for having this kind of conversation when we can see where business, consciousness, and social change actually overlap. And we have many thoughts and insights about that. We have experiences both in our life and also with our clients on how it's possible to use the status and power that business have to promote systemic change, not just do good things within the system, but actually change the system. And we think that business are very well positioned now to be revolutionary that way. And so we want to have this kind of conversation, not only with each other, but also with you and all your ideas and all the insights and perspectives and debate that we can have about this kind of issues.
Yeah, so was the way that the format works so far, we may tweak it because it's our show, but for now, the idea is to ask a question that we get a lot or that we're curious about exploring. And this first episode, we want to explore a foundational question of why does systemic change need more conscious leaders or more conscious business leaders? And I think an interesting take coming from you is because your background is in social justice and academia before becoming a coach and a business owner is, and I come from the business world and the American business world, and this idea that systemic change and business have anything to do with each other, I think is still quite foreign to a lot of people. So share your thoughts on that separation that's been out there for a long time.
Well, I would like to start with the first thoughts I have about bringing or building bridges between fields, different fields. I remember when I was in academia and I was a professor at the university, and coming from being a practitioner in the field and knowing how things actually really happen, there was a big debate that, academics underestimate what practitioners, nonprofit organizations, civil society does because they're not smart enough. They don't know the theory. They're just improvising. And there was this idea that academics are the smart people and the ones that knows everything. On the other hand, there was the practitioners, that is the field that I come from, saying that academics were the ivory tower, that they didn't know what really was happening in the field and how the field was changing, how society and the world was changing too fast for academics to keep up with those changes. And there was this apparently conflict. And my whole battle around that issue was that, no, we really need each other. We feed each other. We need practitioners. We need to understand why things happen and how statistics can help us to inform our strategies better. But also theorists and academics, they need to know how those theories and ideas actually apply in real life, because we said that in theory and practice are the same, but in practice they're not. And we need to build those bridges. So in this case, it's kind of the same. I have perceived from being in both worlds that there is a misconception from one another. I mean, we have a lot of bias towards the other field. As business people and business owners, we think there is this idea that social change is something that happened out there. That is not my problem. Is some other people are taking care of those issues. My only role is to kind of keep up with those changes, adapt to those changes. Maybe if I'm smart enough to see and to seek opportunities in those changes for the benefit of my business. But I have nothing to do with that. That's some other people's problem. And on the other hand, practitioners and social change agents think about business as kind of obstacles. It's like, no, they are getting in the way. The corporate sector is supposed to, should be doing something about it, but they only care about themselves and making money, and they are kind of opportunistic. We believe is not the case for either of the biases, is the opposite. But I think we need to bring about this debate and start the dialogue and prove each other that that's not right, that actually business owners are getting more and more conscious about how social change and systemic change is not only affecting their business, but it's actually their business to be involved and being committed and participate in an active way in creating those changes, not just adapting to the changes that are happening and taking advantage of it, but actually having putting a step forward and actually creating. Because we talk about this in November, that business have the advantage of a lot of freedoms and a lot of autonomy. They have political autonomy and they have economical autonomy. And these are two things that neither the nonprofit organizations or the nonprofit field, the nonprofit sector has, neither the government has, and business have. So the more we raise consciousness among business leaders and business owners and founders, the more we're going to have, we're going to be able to see opportunities for changing the system beyond just doing, good things or things that keep our conscience at peace.
Right. And I think there's kind of a baseline too, kind of a baseline give a shit factor, is that we are moving from the machine age into the human age. And so now as an employer or a business leader, you are responsible for the whole human that works for you or buys from you. You have a level of responsibility, not over their entire life, but at least for the portions that you influence. And so sometimes we hear like, well, what systemic change? What is that? And our thing is like, find the thing that is affecting the people that you care about. Find the thing that's affecting your employees and your customers and your community. And that's the thing to put your muscle behind. Now, if you've been doing consciousness work, that calling may come to you. You may just look out and see, oh, I need to take care of this. This is what I'm here to do. But even if you're in kind of the early stages of social consciousness, if you ask your employees and ask your customers, what's important to you? And this was talked about in the Edelman study on trust. What's important to them is that you care about some of the same issues that they care about. And I think that what we were encouraging people to do that are business leaders is to understand that if you are in the people business, even if you don't want to be or don't feel like you're good at it or whatever, you still are in the people business. And so when you look at a common issue, and there are things like equal opportunity in the environment, there are things that are pretty universal things that you could get behind as a business. The other reason that we think that systemic change needs more business leaders, more conscious business leaders, is kind of what you were saying, is business is wired for innovation. And I'll make a bold statement here that maybe some agree with or disagree with, is I think we're at a place now that if you're not creating systemic change, I'm not sure you're all that innovative. If you're innovating within a system, I suppose, yes, sure, that's what Netflix is. But if you're not like blowing shit up and actually transforming societies and industries, well, the people that can do that are way more equipped from a, like you said, an autonomy standpoint, a resource standpoint, a freedom standpoint, to just go do things. And I think that's part of it. So one of the things that jumps out for me as it relates to kind of your perspective, Virginia, is what if a business owner is like, yeah, I give to charity, or maybe they're a very successful business and they have a foundation like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. What's the difference between like philanthropy, charitable giving, and a conscious business leader getting behind systemic change? What's the difference?
Well, two things I have two ideas that came to my mind when you were talking, and related to that question too, and related to innovation. I think that many business that have some level of consciousness and they really genuinely want to do something good for humanity, and they either create programs within their business or give money to organizations so they can do whatever they're doing, and they, what their efforts to change the world. I will explain it this way, and this is the difference between doing good things and actually changing the system. Changing the system means changing the rules, changing the way the whole industry, the whole society interacts and behave about certain issues. So the difference will be, we said, is not the same. We didn't get to electricity and the light bulb by improving the candles. So what we're doing so far is trying to improve the candles, to make the candles better, to last longer, to be more bright. That's not the same thing as saying like, we're not gonna keep working with candles. We need to create, we need to innovate, we need to invent the light bulb. And that's gonna make a huge impact, not only in terms of innovation and for your business, but in the whole world, because it will never be the same again. That's what systemic change is. So when we talk about philanthropists, and I think that it is very important, I always encourage donors to keep giving money and resources and spaces and opportunities and connections to nonprofit organizations to do what they do best. That is being in the field, serving people, changing, fighting for people. Those are the activists. Those are that have a different vision, that they bring the vision of the people that are actually suffering from those problems. So they need the resource, and that's important. But the difference between an activist CEO, someone that is actually taking systemic change at their heart and making it a personal mission, and a philanthropist, is you once mentioned the example of the chicken and the pork, or the chicken and the pig in breakfast, right? So the chicken contributes with their eggs, give money, get research for the breakfast. The pig is personally committed. I mean, absolutely committed. They give their life for that breakfast, right? For the ham, for the bacon, whatever. So this is the difference between being a philanthropist and taking systemic change as part of your personal mission and make it personal, and being the face of that, becoming a thought leader, having the vision, and be willing to expose yourself and invest in creating a movement and creating a favorable public opinion around something that you think matters. And it's not just like a good thing, it's something that, because of your level of consciousness, you cannot unseen what is wrong with the system. You know that something's off, you know that something is wrong, and even if it's risky, your level of consciousness just don't let you overlook that. And you feel that strong calling that I have to do something about this. And it cannot be some palliative measure. It has to be a radical change. So this maybe will not gonna solve overnight, and especially if it's just one business or a few, we're not gonna solve overnight the massive problems that we have in the world. But if we can change the rules, and if we can change the way the system behave, that's going to step that the system will never go back to.
And I think part of what we're trying to inspire or encourage business leaders to do is to remove the separateness that have been a natural part, where there's this old saying where the kings feed the priests, that social good is something you do after you're successful. And many great things have come out of that. We talked about this in November, but the Andrew Carnegie and libraries. Whoops, that was the wrong mute button too fast. Anyway, so I think the separateness factor is important too. And what we are encouraging people to do is consider organizing your business around systemic change, and make it the point, not just the outcome. And there are many, many examples of this. The whole B Corp movement is part of that. There are also, there is progress, like corporate social good programs. They do a lot of good, but that's a little bit of helping people work within the system to get a little bit more equity within the system, or representation within the system, similar to ERGs, employee resource groups, or DEI programs. All not against any of those things. But
it's again improving the candles.
It's improving the candles, right? And so that's why on February 2nd, we'll do our first live workshop, in-person workshop in Austin. And we'll link to the registration for that in the show notes, is around this idea we call make it massive. And there's kind of three components to that kind of answer this question. If the first question is why does systemic change need more conscious leaders, then the next question is, well, how do I go about doing that? I agree. We do need, I'm a conscious business leader. I agree. Is number one is you have to know what your cause is. You have to be able to identify it. And there's a methodology for that. And it can be, and maybe should be, more spiritual. It's very personal. It's very something that you feel called to do. I have tattooed on my arm, the mission is in the suffering. So it often could be that you went through something that was a source of suffering or struggle. And now that you have the the economic means and the influence, you can contribute to that. Maybe it's a civil rights issue. Maybe it's, I know had a former Root and River client in Chicago that he was very involved in his business, using his business to help with orphanages in Eastern Europe because of his past. So that you have to know that. You have to know what your mission is. The second is you have to have a strategy for essentially how do you pivot your business to be around systemic change without harming the business. We obviously don't want people to do that. We think that there's an advantage. There's a competitive advantage to this, but if you don't have a strategy for this, it's going to be painful. And especially if you're a big giant company with shareholders or you have investors, it's even more of it feels like a threat. If you're a smaller business owner or you are the high majority owner of a company and you have all the decision-making authority, it's still going to be kind of a pain in the ass, but there's a way to do that. And then the third thing that we want people to learn how to do is, okay, what are you going to do? What's the execution of this? What are the resources you need? Who do you need to make this happen? So you move from like warm theory to, actual vibrant application in the world. And that's what the whole make it massive is. And I think one thing you point out.
There's one more thing about that is like who you need to become to be a person that, or a business that can actually make a systemic change.
Right.
Because it's not the same. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Up here and up here.
Yeah.
I'm here too.
Uh-huh.
It's like who you need to become, because so far you have proved yourself that you're a successful business leader, right? That you know how to build a business and make it successful. But those leadership skills, that vision, those skills, that, everything, the values and the behavior and the way everything you did and everything you were and you became for you in order to have that success is not going to help you. It's not going to be enough for sure to make a systemic change. Because one thing is to build a business and be successful, and another thing is to fight a system that doesn't want to change. So it doesn't work the same way that a business does.
Yeah, it's not going to be welcomed. I mean, if you do this, you're going to get so much shit, and you need to be able to handle not just the public pressure, because if you're good at it, you're successful, it is going to feed the ego. It's like, look what I did. I cleaned up. I helped fix an issue. I helped solve a problem. But also then, like we talk about the public scrutiny and the criticism and the system poking back, especially within your peer group within business.
So what we want is to make a call to a lot of business leaders that are out there to help us prove two things. One is that doing systemic change, working on changing the world, is good business, is profitable and good business. And also that when you dare to change the system, to challenge and change the system, is not necessarily only an altruistic approach. Can be a very business mindset approach, because if your business is the one pioneering a systemic change, you will always have that competitive advantage. You're going to be the pioneer. You're going to be the first adopters. You're going to be the one that own the conversation. And it's been proven now. I mean, there are many, many studies that the market shows that they are going to support more business that are doing things that are radical in terms of advancing humanity, way more than any other business. So if you have a competitor or you have many competitors, no matter how big you are, if you can prove that you're different because you're actually tackling systemic change, you're going to have a huge market supporting you for that fact.
Yeah, and I think this is where it kind of collides with reality, is that the resources, especially government as a resource to actually change things, is very limited. I mean, you can see we struggled in the United States to select a Speaker of the House in a timely manner. It's like there's a sense of strong stasis within government, and I know it gets a little bit better when you get down to local government, and then nonprofits are doing incredible work out there, which is why they make such a natural partnership, because the leader, the business leader and the nonprofit leader, they can be allies in working together. I think the challenge though is this sort of provable investment. I think that's the key. And when we talk to people about what we're doing, that's the kind of one of the main resistance points. It's like, I love that idea, but how do I make this real? And it really goes down to what we said before about innovation, and that what we're talking about is a type of brand equity that doesn't exist with your products and services. You can build a certain reputation of being great at what you do, or having a high quality product, or an amazing customer experience, but those are commodities now. It's like barbecue in Austin. You can't suck at it or you'll go out of business. Mm-hmm. It's a similar thing. And so it's a strong belief that this sort of next iteration of innovation is going to be around systemic change. And so there's parts of a business leader, they don't need to change. They need to be curious still, or skeptical. They need to be decisive. They need to know how to be strategic. And the clients that we're working with now they're embarking on this journey, that we're able to use what they've already created in what skills they already have, and then add additional skills like systemic leadership, or the right, what we call an indomitable mindset, which is this sort of unbreakable, untamable mind for justice and getting shit done. What we can do though is what is necessary that we can't ask someone to do, we can't make them do it, is we can't convince them with data. We can give you all the studies, and we can talk about how many companies and B Corps and blah, 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 blah. And that's all true, and the facts will be true, but it has to come from your heart. That's one thing we can't do. We can't make it come from your heart. We can give you the intellectual aspect, and very much related to that, we can't give you courage. It takes courage to do this. And we circle clear back to systemic change, why it needs conscious business leaders is there's already a lot of courageous people working on problems. You pick a problem in the world, in the United States, in a community, there are courageous people working on it. But I give a talk called The Art of Unfinishing, and I talk about models of leadership. And there is it's a struggle for me to find, outside of like Yvon Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia, a business leader that has the courage to take on systemic change. There's plenty of them that do nice things, and credit to them. But that's why there's almost like a sense of urgency here. Is we can't give you courage, but if you have courage, that's who we want. That's who we want to work with, because that's the one thing we can't give anybody else. We can teach you all the tools, but we can't give you courage.
And we have met a lot of people that are business owners or founders or CEOs that knows deep inside that they want to do something bigger than just their business, that they want to contribute, that they want to leave a legacy somehow, that make an impact, a real impact, but they don't know how. So that's the easiest part. That's where we can help, because we can help you refine that vision and think about how we're gonna make this something that can be executed, and how we make sure that has all the impact that you want, and coach you and advise you and help you become the thought leader that you have to become, and help you develop the skills, the mental and emotional skills that you need to be resilient in that struggle, in that fight, and to achieve your goals. But the thing is that many people said, I have this dream, I have this calling for so many years, and I have done anything about it because I'm afraid of risking my reputation, or risking my status or my power, or not being able to make it profitable,
right?
Or even more simple than that, just saying like, yes, I want to do something for the world, but I already have too many obligations.
Right.
And we want to show you that it's possible to integrate all those things in a way that you become aligned your values and your heart and your consciousness and your willing and your nature as a business person, you can align all that, make profit, and have a huge impact. It's possible. It's just it takes being a little bit subversive and good with taking risk and being willing to develop the courage. Maybe you don't have it right now, but you have enough to say, like, I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna develop the courage. And in the process, I'm gonna have all the tools and the resources and the support that I need to keep increasing that level of courage until I reach my goals.
Yeah, and I think this is why we encourage, part of why we named our coaching practice Massive, is there's a tendency to play fairly small here too. It's that you have a lot, if you're a business owner, you have a lot more influence than you might realize. And there's an element here of sort of positive ego reinforcement, which is systemic change is an opportunity to become a legend, like a humble legend. And you talk about a brand, that people will remember forever Gandhi or Martin Luther King Jr. or Jesus, or those are humble transformers, people that did have the courage. And if you are, this is another thing I've noticed too, is that the higher your conscious level goes, the more your ego's window of tolerance closes, because you're losing control. If you go out and do this, you really don't control your business anyway. I mean, it's kind of an illusion. You might control the finances, but you don't control what happens to your business to the level that maybe your ego thinks. But that's really true if you're going to go start some sort of social movement around systemic change. You are giving up control as part of the process. So when your window of tolerance of your ego starts to shrink, then it will respond with fear and scarcity and a bunch of other stuff. It'll bring up all of your unresolved, unintegrated bullshit, that you have going on inside of you. And so, but there is this sort of point of a yes/no moment. And so if you're listening to this and you think, I do have that calling, all we're asking people to do is just take a couple steps towards it. Because if you take a couple steps towards it, you can manage that window of tolerance of your ego. And then you start to build a little bit of a kind of a different kind of confidence when you start to do that, just take a few steps towards it. And then you start to get into this place of possibility too. And that is the opposite, that the thing that keeps the window of tolerance open for the ego is possibility. And if you can keep that expanded, then you get to imagine the kind of change that you're going to create in the world. And I don't know, I think that's maybe as close to like state of bliss that you can get to, when you can see with humility the impact that you're making, and there's some financial benefit from doing that too, by building a conscious-based business. So
yes. So if you have that calling, if you have an idea, if there is something that has been bugging you for I don't know how long, and you didn't really think that was possible, that you thought that you have to just live with that, because what do you do with that kind of things? But just reach out to us, and we will be so happy to know you first, because we're really excited to meet more and more business leaders that have just a calling, and see what that calling is, and what are the dreams, and what is possible. And we love to have this kind of conversation to kind of challenge you a little bit and say, like, let's think bigger. Let's dream bigger. What else is possible? What else is possible for you? So we will love to talk to you and have this conversation and see how far can you go with that.
Right. And episode 2 will be filming. We'll be shooting that in a couple of weeks. I don't think we have the question figured out that we want to answer yet, but it will continue to be around these big ideas. And as Virginia said, if you want to talk, reach out. Our opinion is always free about your idea.
That's right.
And if you're listening to this and you're in Austin, we mentioned the February 2nd event at Austin Country Club, choosing that venue for a little bit of irony. But if you want us to Make It Massive to your community and like host a cohort or sponsor a cohort where you invite other business leaders that you know in your city, reach out about that too. We would love to come and do
How
that.
can it reach out?
Just go to either of our LinkedIn profiles is the fastest, or you can go Virginia@massivechange.co or Justin@massivechange.co. So with that, we'll let you get back to your day. Thank you so much for those of you that tuned in live, and thank you for those of you that are watching this later. Thank you.